question though. You're saying that in your realm of reference that God is infinite, okay? But you said earlier that there's not enough time for life to occur or germ to occur within 20 billion years or 10 to the 150th power. But if time is, if the universe is infinite, God's infinite, that appears that there's more than enough time for life to occur.
God's infinite, the universe is finite.
What if the universe isn't finite?
You're going to need a scientific explanation to prove that. Right now, science
What about
indicates-
string theory? Because that posits like 13 dimensions, it posits an infinite number of universes. So that means that time
That's
is
getting way out of my
expanding.
Actually, I've
have-
spent the
yeah.
last year studying this, and I was going to stay away from cosmology simply because it's so vast. Since you brought it up, and he's also mentioned it, the whole, if God, that tells us nothing? Not necessarily. If you get your a priori assumptions from the fact that God says he created, then, well, like Sir Francis Bacon, he said, well, if God created it, then it's rational, we can investigate it. None of the other religions came up with that. The other religions, many of the other religions, have a more fickle God, more in the image of man, like the gods on Mount Olympus that were quarreling all the time. One of the cosmologists wrote this book, taking as his a priori assumption God did create everything, and he explains, with his theory, how that may have worked. Don't know if this is accurate or not, but it does answer the question of how we can see a star that's a billion light years away if we only had 10,000 or 100,000 years.
Yeah, well, there are easy ways around that, but I want to hear your question.
Back to science.
Yes, please.
Not philosophy. I guess we need to define terms, and the term I'd like to define just quickly is natural selection. And that, in your terminology, what's the definition?
I don't know if I could give you a neat definition, but it's essentially what I was trying to say before and probably didn't say clearly enough, is that the term natural selection is a sort of takeoff on the selection that the breeders of plants and animals do when they select which pairs or whatever's are going to, they select for certain characteristics, certain hereditary characteristics. And so the idea of natural selection is that instead of selection done by breeders on a farm or whatever, that the environment selects for certain qualities. That's natural selection.
Okay. So my question would be that how would random mutations over a long period of time create a system like the visual system if those mutations would not have increased the survivability of the organism in the subsystem? Because we have many different systems within one system.
Mm-hmm.
And if those would not have increased, how would they have been passed on to become a beneficial mutation?
Well, for one thing, there's a lot of what's selected is variation, okay, which is besides the mutations, there's a lot of recombination, okay, which I take it the creationists embrace, because you have a tremendous amount of almost instant evolution going on after Noah's flood, if I understand some of the versions at least. But okay, so a lot of mutations are neither immediately harmful nor immediately beneficial. They're basically neutral, so they are passed on because there's nothing to filter them out. And depending on the situation, they may become either harmful or beneficial later in certain situations. And I am getting a really bad headache, and I don't know
Okay.
what else I was going to say, but John has something.
I'll break in briefly, and then I think John has a question later.
I was at one point going to be
It's-
part of the
it's-
panel, but
Yeah, right.
The-
I think he's got a
The best
comment, not a
probably
question.
source that I think comes closest to addressing your topic is this book, The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins. He has out about 6 different books, maybe even more than that, and they overlap each other, so it would be kind of a drag to read all of them, probably, but each one of them tends to focus on a particular problem area. That how is it that this works within evolution? How is it that, and this one does the best job on how a more complex structure can arise as an incremental process. And
Which
then,
is the theory of natural selection.
which is, that's pretty much it. I mean, basically,
I know where this is
the progeny of an organism vary in different ways. They're a little bigger, larger, smaller, stronger, longer fur, shorter fur, whatever. And then in whatever the moving target of their environment is, some of them are going to do better there. They're going to produce more, pass on more of their version of the genome than whatever organism went the other direction in
And
its
that-
variation.
I'm going to.
And then that
speak
accumulates over
later.
time.
Come
It's,
on.
it does, it's small steps, generation to generation, but over a period of time, some of those steps are worth going a little more in that direction, a little more in that direction, a little more in that direction, and they'll eventually be favored. That doesn't mean that,
Your
Yeah.
time is now up.
okay,
Can,
good, that's
can,
fine.
can I remembered what I was trying to say before that went out of my head, which, yeah, it went into your head, that's what happened to it. A lot of evolution appears to have proceeded by what they call pre-adaptation, meaning that something proved useful for some function and was therefore selected for. And then, with a change of environment or whatever, went in another direction, it turned out to be useful for the development of something else when combined with a new set of genes or whatever, a new mutation, what have you. So you get a lot of stuff like that. You could get a structure that didn't start out to be part of an eye, but somewhere along the line it became useful when some other part had developed for some other purpose, and bingo.